Good morning, good morning, good morning. Live on a Tuesday. It's the Gareth Cliff Show, cliffcentral.com, and just after 6 o'clock in the morning, bright and early. Well, can't say bright, early. Early will work, but no bright. Let's not bullshit ourselves.
Yeah.
It's not bright. All right, so we have the beautiful and resplendent Lebang Hosana with us this morning, who has, despite the tremendous responsibilities of being quite pregnant at this point, quite pregnant is the way to say it, she's still getting up early and getting shit done, which is tremendous. I mean, really. You know, there's some people who have they make up some excuse and they don't even have to worry about some of the responsibilities you have. So just saying, if you're one of those people, you make it happen. You make it happen. Right. God damn it.
That's it.
So first things first, what's been happening with you and how are you?
I'm feeling good. I'm doing all right. I'm a bit anxious naturally, but other than that, it's what you're saying. It's just like getting up and going, not letting anything in my stomach that's growing stop me. I'm good, dude. I'm excited for these next few weeks. Just like the jitters are now happening, like it's real. Like the more and more I walk around and people stare at my stomach, I'm like, oh yeah, shit. Gonja, there's a child in there. Like, why are people staring at me? Oh, that's why. But other than that, all is well, man. I'm excited. I'm keen. I'm very keen.
I was thinking of someone who, if you think it's hard to have all the kids you've got, there. I watched this brilliant movie last night, which it's an old classic. It's really magnificently done. Peter O'Toole and what was her name? I can't even remember her name now, and she's the most brilliant actress. It's an old movie from like the 1960s about King Henry II of England and Eleanor of Aquitaine. And Eleanor of Aquitaine was the mother of 5 boys and 4 girls. And she was the queen, and she ran her own province of Aquitaine for most of her adult life. She also managed all of these children when they started squabbling with each other. Katharine Hepburn. That's who the actress was. And wow. I mean, look, so the real person who lived in around the 1100s must have been a phenomenal and formidable woman. And then the character that Katharine Hepburn plays in the movie is just, sometimes you think when people talk about these old movies, you're like, oh yeah, please. But you're just nostalgic because you're attached to the idea of these old movies being like special because they were recorded back then and they had these great actors and actresses in and the golden era of Hollywood. But I'll tell you something, that is a damn fine movie. Look, it goes on for a long time. And while I was watching it, I was like, got to get to bed at some point. But man, it was good. And it's called 2 hours and something. So not terrible, but it's called The Lion in Winter. Just do yourself a favor if you've got some time when your feet are up later on. Just try and watch it. It's a really great movie. And just, what I loved, Lebang, is the dialogue is so beautifully written. Like these days, you watch a Marvel movie or whatever. The dialogue's stupid. It's there are a couple of jokes here and there, but it's not clever. It's not. When you listen to the kind of dialogue that was written, and I believe that The Lion in Winter used to be a play, which was actually put on. It was like almost like a semi-Shakespearean type play. So when you listen to the way that these two characters, especially the two main, Henry II and Eleanor of Aquitaine, Peter O'Toole and Katharine Hepburn, and you hear the way they talk to each other. And you hear how clever each line is. Each line is just beautifully done. I mean, whether they're being horrible to each other or they're remembering when they were in love and they're talking about their own children. I mean, it's just beautifully, beautifully written. And I don't know that a lot of movies these days are that focused on the dialogue. I think a lot of them are focused on the action. A lot of them are focused on special effects and kind of making a big noise and whatever. But and I don't want to sound like one of those old boring people who watches art movies or movies from the before they were born. But honestly, you compare them side by side, it's just not even a contest. It's like I
I,
watched it and I was blown away by how very brilliant the acting and the dialogue was. I was like, I didn't think this stuff
mm,
would impress me.
yeah, it would definitely impress you. You do seem like the type that would resonate more towards those kinds of movies than anything more recent. But definitely, I agree with you in that they were more
You're saying I'm old?
intentional. No, what? Did I say that? They were just more intentional with their dialogue back then because wasn't that what sold? It was the script, it was the
Mm,
storytelling. That's what we bought into. Now it's like
right.
there's so much smoke and mirrors. There's like just like glitter everywhere. They don't even need to say anything that makes sense. As long as it looks good, which is sad because we've ultimately lost out on like a whole freaking time of really, really, really good movies, and that's why they're classics. And these days,
Well,
it's hard to get classics.
maybe you're right, but I also think that's one of those things that screws up my general view of everything. My general view is that everything's improving. Like if I look at the state of humanity now and I think about what we know and where we've been and the internet and the kind of stuff that we can find out about each other, and we've got brilliant people who can now who are
Mm,
accessible to all of us. Even if you're not at Harvard University, you can listen to a podcast with the greatest professor in, I don't know, whatever the subject is, at the greatest university in the world, and you don't have to be a gazillionaire who is enrolled at the university. That's the kind of access
correct.
none of us had before. But the problem is, this thing that you just said goes against my general trajectory of upwardness.
Yeah, but Gareth, with upwardness also invites a lot of shortcuts. So you get a whole
Mm,
bunch of people that
mm,
can see the
good point.
goal, and it's like, oh, I can just get there quicker now because the internet, I just need to watch YouTube for an hour, and now I'm a movie director. You know what I mean? Whereas there's
Right.
still those people that put their elbows in the grease. They put in their
Yeah,
10,000
yeah.
years these days and
Right.
really like these good movies. But for the most part, just focus on the good stuff because it's still out there. There's really, really good stuff that you can still consume.
Well, I mean, there are lots of people here suggesting all kinds of movies. By the way, yesterday I
Mm,
made a real mistake. I right clicked on, I think it was Sanele who listens to us every morning, and I think I
yeah.
blocked Sanele without even knowing what I was doing. It was while there was a
Gareth,
conversation going on. No, no, no. I feel terrible about this. That's why I'm bringing it up. It's like it bothered me all day yesterday. Ooh, can I tell you what I did yesterday?
go for it.
I went to my old school. That This is an amazing thing. So there's this guy at the school. I'd never met him before. He's in matric at the moment. He's one of the prefects, leadership as they call them. Guy called Mihlali, and Mihlali
Mm,
sent me an email. I get emails all the time from people, and I respond to all of them. Like I've said before, even if it takes me a little while, I get to every email. And
yeah.
Mihlali basically said, "Hey, listen, would you come to the school and just like address the whole school? We're going to assembly or whatever, and it's part of his matric project of like trying to, I don't know whether it's inspire or motivate or kind of open up like everybody at the school's ideas of what you could end up doing one day. And having done some media stuff and all the rest of it, they all kind of knew my name, which is always a relief because, as someone said to me a while ago, you don't know you're relevant until like school kids know your name, and you also don't know you're irrelevant when school kids forget your name because they've got a lot of things that
Yeah.
they'd rather pay attention to. And so I arrived there yesterday, which was so weird, Labang. I don't know when last you went back to your old school, and I'm not one of those people who wants to go back to school just because I don't want to relive like
Yeah,
nostalgia and
no.
glory days and all
Mm-mm.
that shit, like in the song by Bruce
Mm.
Springsteen. So and most of my friends who I knew from school that I really liked, I'm still friends with, and it's a handful. It's like maybe 5 or 6, right?
Yeah.
The rest, you were at school with them, so it doesn't mean you need to be with them forever. And
Mm.
I got there, and it was so weird because there was so much about the school that was so familiar, but a lot has
Okay.
changed.
A lot
A
has
lot has
changed. I was
changed
about to say, I'm sure there's been changes. Yeah.
because it's again, like you said earlier, I'm so old, right?
Hey, hey. I think, look, it's nice to be able to go back to your old school, especially if you get invited. like, hey, please come back for ABC. That's always nice because you feel like you may have left some sort of impact, or you're setting an example for the other kids. But if you're just one of those people that just happens to want to keep going back and like you visit every year
That's very
since you
sweet.
matriculated,
That's so
that's a
sad.
little bit creepy. That's like, get a lifey type of
Yeah,
energy. But it must have been really nice to see those kids though.
well, I mean, the school, first of all, you forget when you're at school that everything looks bigger because you're littler. And,
Yeah.
the kinds of things that impress you when you're at school are not the kinds of things that impress you when you go back. I mean, I just wanted to go into one or two of the old classrooms and just see what it felt like again, and because I remember being in those science labs and just loving, the chemical experiments that we were doing. And I loved being in certain of the classrooms because the teachers would just make it so interesting to be in there. You'd learn about countries far away or whatever it was. And I mean, I was always a curious kid, so it wasn't difficult to stimulate me. But I looked at all of these kids, and first of all, I mean, the school's improved in leaps and bounds. And it was nice to see so much development going on. And it's nice to see like a school that's full, like there's 1,300 kids. And there are a lot of really, really positive things that are going on there, which is fantastic, because if you leave something and it turns out worse than when you left it, you always think, oh no, that's a bit sad. But it's exactly the opposite. I mean, I see more and more going on there. They've built this pool, and they've got a whole area there. They've got more facilities you can see, and I mean, it's just looking terrific. And there were none but two of the teachers who were there when I was there. So I joked
When you
because
were there, yeah.
there's an old age home that they built down below the school. So I'm like, in front of all these kids, I'm like, hi. Last time I was here, Nelson Mandela was president. And I'm sorry, all the teachers that I had are now in the old age home, which is just down there. So
that's a great icebreaker.
So if you don't know who I am, that's absolutely fine. But but I was here a long, long time ago. And I also remember when we were at school. Hey, Bakh'abantu, he's here. He was running. Are you feeling better, dude?
Hey.
So I have a new bout of flu. It's different, presents with different symptoms, but
Lord.
I'm alive. But yeah, this one is better because last week I was suffering. I don't want to be. I don't want to join you guys in your guys complaining about old movies and back in my day. I don't
shut
want
up,
that.
man.
Are you calling us old?
Shut up and listen.
Well, you called Gareth old, Labang, and between the two of you guys are ancient.
See, Labang, you've just been roped in. How's that? Ha! You just got roped in.
If you matriculate in 1925, it's okay. This is a safe space. It's okay. We accept you here. There's no age limit. There's no cap. It's what's inside that matters, Gareth. That's all.
It's what's inside. Old bones that are grinding against each other. Like,
hey, Bakh'abantu,
I must tell you, it was really cool to go back there and just see, like, the stuff that the places where you would sit with your friends at break and like that sort of shit. It's nice. It's a good feeling. And
I mean, it's supposed to be.
I'm not hurrying back there anytime. There's got to be a reason. And I love the fact that it was just one of the students there who invited me, because I wouldn't have invited myself. And it was cool to do. I did finish it off by saying, you guys probably care about what people on the left and right of you think. So I said to them, and it's this thing that we spoke about on the show the other day. I said, like, yeah, until your middle 20s, you will care a lot about what other people think. So then your middle 30s, you will stop caring what people think. By the time you get to your 40s, you'll realize no one was thinking about you anyway. So they're like that.
That's dope.
Anyway.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so Bakh'abantu, what's been happening with you besides being sick and pathetic like an old man? See, we can throw these. We can cast these. You want to start this game? We can play this game. You're the one who was sickly. Okay. Lebang has got a whole person growing inside of her, and she hasn't.
A whole fifth person growing inside of her.
She hasn't been slacking off. I've been sick. I haven't missed one show, so I don't know what your story is. You big pussy.
Hey, guys! They don't make them how they used to. Okay, so I'm not from the school where you guys used to go out and hunt. Was that you or Lebang, Gareth?
No, we used to hunt for our food. Yeah, we had to hunt for our food. Congo Chris
during break.
Gareth is so old that his report card was graded in Greek letters.
Ooh.
My point exactly.
Oh, that's so great. I love it. Mm.
Are you feeling better though?
Like I said, like I have a new bout of a different flu for some reason. I don't know where I got it from. I think I got it from work because everyone's just been sick at work. I don't know because I just went back Friday at work and then I got sick over by Sunday. I was sick again. I'm like, guys, this can't be me alive. This can't be it. But last week when I got better on Thursday, I started having this headache. But then I went to the doctor. The doctor said it was tied to my hypertension. So I was like, oh, okay. So that's a different sickness that you have on Thursday. So basically, I've had 3. Yeah, I have hypertension, Gareth.
You got a lot of you got a lot of problems. I don't know if you're going to make it.
Got a lot of old people problems. I got a lot of old people problems.
I don't know if you're going to make it all the way to your 40s. You know, one day when we're having this conversation at your age, Lebang and I will still be here, but you might be dead.
Yeah. Unless Elon Musk figures out a way to upload our consciousness into computers, then I'll be alive.
Which he might.
Yeah, we're still waiting for that. By the way, you hear his Twitter deal might be off. We'll get to that later, though.
Yeah. I heard that. But I was gonna say, like, speaking about movies that like are new but really good, and it's based on a play. Have you guys seen Hamilton?
As in the Hamilton music? No, the Hamilton musical about Alexander Hamilton was famously written by this. What's his name?
Lin-Manuel Miranda. Yeah,
Miranda. That's it. Yeah. Apparently, it is fantastic. I haven't seen it. Everybody tells me it's brilliant, but
it is 3 hours of just brilliance. It is like I've watched The Batman, and like because I'm a man of many talents, and I am not like Gareth who hates on superheroes and hates everything good in life.
I've watched those movies. No, wait. I've watched those movies. I just don't rate them as being great works of art that in 100 years' time people go, ooh, well done, humanity. That was a high point.
But Hamilton is a modern day Shakespeare, like from like reading Othello back in high school and Macbeth and Romeo and Juliet and all the stuff we did in high school and watching Hamilton. Like I'm like, this guy is brilliant, and he finds a way to merge it with rap, Lebang. So it's not like a musical. I am Alexander Hamilton. It's like it's very modern. It's very modern. It's a great take on what a musical and what a Shakespearean musical is.
You had me at rap. Okay, but 3 hours is also quite a commitment. Like that's 3 hours I'm never getting back. If I'm going to commit to this, it really has to be like the build-up needs to be correct. And I need to know what I'm getting myself into. It's not just a 1 hour, it's a 3 hour film. So
Lebang, you watched Fast and the Furious, all of them. That's like 2 hours a pop. I mean,
but that's like action back to back.
You're never getting that time back.
That's action back to back. And remember that the F is for family, my boy. F is for family. So
yeah, listen, I can't get if I look at a series. I mean, I did waste my time. I mentioned this series 2 weeks ago. I think I said I was watching this thing called The Pentaveret with Mike Myers. So I watched the whole thing. What a waste of time. Now I really persevered. Hey, I gave it all. I was like, I'm gonna watch this. I'm not gonna give up. I've started the series. I'm already 3 in. So there's sunken cost like creeping in. And then by the 4th episode, I'm like, oh, Jesus, I hope this ends soon. Luckily, it did. I think it's only 6 or 7 episodes long. But I had to watch to the end now because I was like, maybe there's something brilliant at the end of this. I looked at this and I thought, no wonder Netflix are losing money.
Are we blaming Netflix or Mike Myers?
I caught your guys' review on that. I was like, Gareth and Lebang says it's meh, episode 1. I'm like, nah, I'm good. Because you guys were talking about it last week. I'm like, nah, I don't think I'll watch it.
But this is to Lebang's point. We're trying to save people time. If I see something great, even if it's a movie from the 60s that I never watched before, I'll tell you to watch it. If it's bullshit like The Pentaveret, don't watch it. So
yeah, and you have every right to believe us. We don't like to lead you astray. That's not why we do this. We care about you. We don't want you to watch shit and waste time. Yeah. That Pentaveret thing, it was so... I didn't even get that far, Gareth. I think I saw the first 2. I was like...
No problem.
I don't want to hate you, Mike Myers. I like you so much. You had such a great time. You know, your gold member days was so good. Let me not continue watching this. Otherwise, my vision probably just going to be poor.
Yeah, we respect the fact that people listen to us for an hour or two every morning, and we're not going to make you waste an hour or two on some shitty series that you're going to go, ugh. Like I think about it. The point with a show like ours is it's never perfect because you don't know what's going to happen. We don't script things. It could change direction. We might have a great guest. We might have a strange guest. We might have some people who are terrible. We might have conversations that are tremendous and interesting and terrific. Hopefully that's what happens. But sometimes, we have a day where maybe Lebang and Bakh'abantu and I are not on our best form. And then, we maybe don't deliver a 10 out of 10. But the point is with like a show like this Mike Myers Pentaveret thing, you kind of feel like someone's spent a lot of money on every episode, and there's, makeup and special effects, and like there's a storyline and they've perfected it, and there's been a bunch of people who've been polishing this thing to make it better. And then you watch it and you're like, it's almost as if no effort went into this thing. It's just dumb. It's just really dumb.
We've got high expectations at the end of the day. I mean, number one, you're Mike Myers. If a studio has bought into your idea, it means somebody okayed this. Somebody upstairs said, this is great. Put a whatever budget behind it. So the least of our expectations is that it'll be viewable, consumable, entertaining. It was none of those three.
Speaking of brilliant and consumable and entertaining, just watch this. This is a brilliant clip that was on the SABC just a couple of days ago about some kind of crisis in Kimberley. And I think this is somebody from the mayoral committee, or it could even be the mayor. I don't know who this person is, but you're going to love this. All right. Are you ready for this? Is the best entertainment in television at the moment. If you're watching live TV, you are going to be sad you didn't see this live. But luckily for you, we have it here for you. Ready?
Also, what should residents do in the meantime?
We are urging on residents to we working on what was the question again?
What should residents do in the meantime?
We are working on mobile.
Now, I'm so glad you brought up this video, Gareth, because I'm at the point in my life where I actually don't find these videos very funny. And also, I swear to God, I've seen so many of these videos where people are being interviewed in the streets, and generally, we end up making like this huge mockery of the fact that they can't speak English. How are they supposed to speak English? It's not their first language. Really, as the interviewer.
Sorry. I don't buy that shit.
Nah. I have to call you out about that one. I get the point you're trying to make. Gareth, can I take this one?
Yeah, Bakh'abantu, you take this one. I kind of think that you've got an answer prepared for this, but Lebang is being extremely sympathetic to someone who deserves no sympathy. Go for it, Bakh'abantu.
No, I get the whole, it's not your mother tongue, Lebang, but like she could have spoken her mother tongue. Number one, it's SABC. She could have spoken her mother tongue. SABC would have forked out for a translator or something. And then number two, she's an executive of something because she has some kind of authority to address this water crisis thing. So her position deems her to be in to have pre-prepared at least, because she looks like a grade 2 who didn't prepare the oral.
They didn't pluck her from the crowd. The great hold of Kimberley and say to her, all right, now we're going to put you on TV and make you talk in a language that isn't your own and explain something in general.
Yes,
she is in charge of the water crisis. She is a spokesperson who's been asked, because she can speak to people, about what's going on in Kimberley. That is the best response Kimberley can offer. Now,
so from my experience in media and reporting, it's usually the interviewer's job or role to see that, what best answers am I going to get out of this person? If this person's already struggling with your pre-prep, like, yo, dude, are you ready? We're going to go live. If this person's already like, ask the question in their mother tongue, they'll be so much more comfortable. But what I'm saying is, guys, how many videos do we see every week of people being interviewed in the streets and they all suck at English? Yes. And we just sit there and kind of like laugh at it. I'm just over it. It's lame.
Lebang, it's not even at English. This woman's brain didn't work properly. She didn't even hear the question. She had to ask for the question to be said again. So it's not this is not like she didn't understand.
I don't think this is an English
so,
problem.
She's so useless. The software and the hardware are so damaged in the head. It's got nothing to do with language. That is not a language thing. I reckon she would have been as shit in Setswana if that's what she's speaking because she's in Kimberley. I'm telling you.
The problem is, Lebang, she's tripping over her lies. She's not prepared. She doesn't even know because probably she has water because she's some kind of politician. That's the problem.
So
like in that one video.
How did she get into that position of power, right? Who hired her?
Exactly when
she's not capable.
Right. And who
That's
thought
what we're discussing.
that putting her, like, okay, so here's the problem. It's not the SABC looking to embarrass this woman. In fact, the journalist in this question asks the same question twice, which you don't normally get a chance to do on TV. So no one said to her, now we're going to embarrass you. She was chosen
I don't think they did.
as the representative of that mayoral committee or whatever. They put her on TV. They're like, she'll handle it because they know she's useless, but she's obviously got like some reason that she was put in that position. Maybe she knows somebody or something. And then when she embarrasses herself, people like you are going to say, oh, shame, it's because of English. It's not.
Shame. Just why is this funny? Is this really entertainment? In a country like South Africa, this is what we're going to say. Wow.
You know what?
This is so funny.
Yes.
No, it's not funny.
Because, well, there are people who have no water in Kimberley. And it's because of people like her and the people who put her in that position and the fact that she has no good excuse. You could see there's no idea going through her mind that she can explain this away, but she's got such a huge amount of hubris that she reckons, I'll just go in front of the camera. I don't have to. I'll just wing it. I'll wing it. And that's what she's done. So what it shows is not that there's some kind of mother tongue thing. I mean, that was a great excuse and remains a good excuse for people who honestly have language difficulties. But you can, as Bakh'abantu says, answer in any language on the SABC. They can ask you a question in English, and you can say to them then in whatever language you prefer to speak. Sorry, say that again in my language. If you take them seriously, this woman doesn't take her job seriously. She doesn't take the question seriously. She doesn't even care about the problem in Kimberley. And you could see that from there. And I don't like this whole thing that we make excuses for people like that, because that's precisely why we have no water there.
I agree with you guys in that she obviously is not qualified for the position that she's in. I am just tired of seeing videos like this that are made a mockery of in the country that we live in, considering. But let's isolate this one video. Yes, we all agree she's trash and she's showing that she's trash. But she's also showing a bigger problem that we're dealing with, is that how do half of the people get in the positions that they get into? It's the same bloody nonsense that we see all the time. And that's really what we should be discussing, nothing more. It shouldn't be, a case of, oh, look, like that part I think is just fluff. The real issue here is how the hell did this nonsense person get here? That's it. That should be the only thing, in my opinion.
EP47 says, you're calling her trash. It was a watered down response. Look, I don't feel sorry for anyone who's put in front of a camera because they're in a position of power and authority and is asked to explain themselves and can't. To me, that is the whole reason we have journalism, is to out these people so that now, hopefully, someone in Kimberley goes to her office, knocks on the door there and says, sorry, Matt, you know what? That thing you did on TV was fucking embarrassing. And we're going to have to get rid of you because you really, really shit at your job. That's what it requires. That's the only reason we put her on TV, is because hopefully in replacing her, we find someone who sounds like they actually give a damn about the people of Kimberley, who they've been elected to do something for. And number two, who can answer a simple question, especially when it's asked twice.
Yeah, that we agree. Yebo.
So you know what? The only reason we end up with people like that is because we're making excuses for them.
True that.
So
testify, brother Gareth. Testify.
I think are we saying here that Lebang is part of the problem?
Yes.
No, that's not what we're saying.
9 months pregnant Lebang is part of the problem, guys.
Don't. That's no excuse.
Strong, powerful black woman.
Hold on. She's not using that excuse, so you're not allowed to. And
Also,
by
this
the
term
way,
strong, powerful black woman, we'll talk about another day. I've also got a problem with that, but let's park that.
well,
It's what Gareth said now. We're all going to have different opinions on this show, and that's what makes the show interesting. Imagine
yeah,
how lame it would be if we all sat here and said, oh, yes, ha, 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 you're all so right. We all agree. No,
of
we're
course.
supposed to have these conversations. So I'm glad you brought that up. But
And
contextually, like if you just see the range of these videos that pop up every other day, literally it's just a joke, it's just a joke.
well,
And this one
look at
isn't.
look at how often this happens to
Yeah.
prove, just to push the point one last time, and then I'll leave it alone, because I really did play that just for entertainment's sake, but we've gone in
I
this
know you
direction.
did.
Okay, so when you watch that idiot Joe Biden on TV and you see how he stumbles and trips over every second word, I mean, he doesn't even make an effort to say the words properly anymore. He just you can see his brain is completely melted
Mush.
in his head. There's just nothing going on there except
It's
like
over.
all he can think about is, I need to pee and pudding, and maybe occasionally like, where the hell am I? You can see he's like, he should be in an old age home in frail care,
Playing bingo.
playing bingo,
But
or just having a
Gareth,
nap.
on a
having a
point on
nap.
Joe Biden, I don't think English is his mother tongue.
Well, it's my point. So he's doing the same thing. I mean, they asked him about this. There are a couple of things going on at the moment. The biggest issue in America at the moment, and the thing that will lose the Democrats the elections at the end of this year when it comes to the House and the Senate, is inflation. And this guy is just, he got up on stage over the weekend, I think it was. I watched this clip. Let's see if I can't find it for you. This old man, remember, Joe is like, what, he's 78, 79 years old. And he gets up on stage and he starts shouting at people. He's like, and there's like a crowd of, I don't know, 20, 30 people. It's still the biggest crowd he's had since, he was campaigning against Trump and mostly staying in his basement. And I mean, listen, the whole point of Joe Biden was just don't be Donald Trump and people will vote for you. That's all. The standard is so low. People hate Donald Trump so much. All you have to do is just not be him and you'll get the votes. That's all he had to do. But he gets up there and it's like, those old men who scream at kids out of their window when the kids are on the lawn in the
Get
front
off
of their
my
house.
property.
And he's shitting on the American people for inflation that he is partly responsible for. When he took office, there was every reason for the economy to come back and boom. COVID was on its way down. He was assuring us that he had that under control. And all he had to do was not create economic policy that would hold things back or retard things even further. Open it up, let things get back to where they were pre-COVID, because it was already booming then. Instead, now there's inflation, the worst inflation in living American history. I think even during the Carter administration, they didn't hit numbers like this. His approval ratings, even with Democrats, are in the low 40s, high 30s. He's probably the most unpopular president of any of our lifetimes. And then he gets on TV or he gets in front of a crowd and he starts shouting at them. It's the same thing as that woman from Kimberley. They're just out of their depth. They don't know where to be. They don't know what to do. And people have got to throw them the hell out of office because they're holding things back and they're ruining people's lives. I mean, this inflation thing is hitting. It's not going to hurt the rich people. It never does. The rich people are just doing what the rich people do. The middle class and the working class people in America are being hit hard by this stuff. And then there's this old dude shouting at them like they need that. Again, same situation, two different people. One woman in Kimberley who couldn't string a sentence together because she couldn't care less. And one very, very senile old man in America. Same problem. That's what I'm thinking. Anyway, we've got to get to some other things, including some headlines. So let's take a look. Apparently there's a story which I must be honest with you, I didn't know about until I saw it in the headlines this morning. And maybe, maybe again, I'm ignorant here, but I didn't know about this Elton Yankees thing on the flight. Did you guys know about this?
I found this out Monday. Yeah, yesterday.
Yeah. So apparently, Elton Yankees, the Springbok fly half, was arrested at OR Tambo on the 15th of May, which is 2 days ago. And apparently there was an incident on board a flight. So his agent revealed he was traveling back from Turkey without his family and that a light was damaged on board the flight. However, Adams suggested that they felt the incident has been unnecessarily heightened. In a report compiled by News 24, the report alleges that Yankee spent 10 minutes banging on the toilet door of an Emirates Airlines flight until his fists bled. A fellow passenger alleges that Yankees could be heard saying, "Come on, my scut," to an air hostess who was hiding in the cubicle. Two witnesses told News 24 that Elton Yankees was unsteady on his feet, that there was blood all over the toilet door, while suggesting his blood-stained fists also smeared some of the seats. A visibly terrified air hostess was said to have emerged from the toilet after he finally returned. The eyewitnesses suggested the incident occurred after he came to economy class from his place in business class. So here's what some people have said. He was banging on the toilet door in Afrikaans. It was clear that he wanted to speak to someone in the bathroom, and he ended up punching the door of the bathroom. That caused his knuckles to start bleeding. Sure. He came back to business class. The blood of his knuckles was all over the toilet door, and he was moving through the cabin, smearing blood on people's seats because he was walking clumsily. So it sounds like he was drunk. It sounds like he was...
Or something.
It sounds like he was after this air hostess, trying to join the Mile High Club. And this is a very embarrassing situation. So they've put out a press release, and his agent has said, "We believe it's been unnecessarily heightened. Our client remains compliant with the investigation, and we would like to allow the legal authorities to attend to this without any undue influence. Ask that the public and press respect the legal process." In closing,
because that's proven to work.
Well, in closing, I can confirm that Mr. Yankees has been released and is not in police custody. No further comments issued at this stage. So that's from his agent. But this is not the greatest thing to do if you don't want what do they call it? Unnecessarily heightened situations. It's like behave really stupidly on a plane where there are other passengers who can see and will report their own version of the story. It sounds very bad.
I don't think it has been heightened. The only thing that's heightened right in the story is the airplane, because I'm hearing about this for the first time. And they haven't really been making a lot of noise about this. This is literally just like they're kind of sweeping it under the radar. Because by now, if he got arrested on the 15th, it's 2 days later. And you know how the social media cycle is, it's like a 7-day thing. So by now, if we haven't heard about it, then it's probably not going to be in the news tomorrow or the day unless there's new developments. But I guess he's got a good PR team because this is the first I'm hearing of it.
Yeah. Anything you want to add to that, Bakh'abantu? Move on.
No, I was going to say, in fact, like to Lavang's point, the only people heightening the situation is the agent addressing this, because the story is how the agent addressed it, not what Elton did. But what he did is deplorable. You can't do that. We don't know why he did what he did.
Guys.
But
drinking on airplanes is dangerous.
Yeah, like it's a confined space. Whatever he wanted.
Try not to harass the.
Yeah.
Try not to harass
the
cabin
space. Yeah, it's a confined space. You can't run away, and you basically trapped, and you're being a terrorist on the plane. Nah, dude, don't.
You can't say the word terrorist and plane in the same sentence. Come on.
Well, it's kind of what it is, whether we like it or not. So, okay, here's a story that nobody wants to hear this morning, and I'm reticent to even tell you this story because I know we're all dealing with a lot of things at the moment. But apparently, motorists in June have to get ready to usher in another petrol price hike of what they're calling horrific proportions.
Oh my God.
Listen to this. Apparently there is there's a huge amount of stuff going on. First of all, we've got an automatic increase of R1.50 a litre in the general fuel levy, bullish dollar, floundering rand, surging international crude oil prices. We could have to pay an extra R3.50 a litre come month end, according to the AA. That's a lot of money, man.
They hate us. They actually hate us. I'm convinced.
They hate us, right?
Surely.
What do you say to that? That's a lot. If it goes up by R3.50 a litre, forget about it. Nobody's going to go home. No one's going to go to work. You're just going to sit in one place. I feel terribly sorry for people who are already being pinched. I mean, listen, transport costs are crazy for the average South African, especially people who have to catch taxis, especially people who have to catch buses. Those people don't have an option. The increases get passed straight on to them. So it's not as if these increases, are absorbed by government, by the Department of Transport, by the taxi bosses, by the taxi drivers, and ordinary people who have their own cars, whether you're lucky enough to have that or not, or a bike or whatever it is that you got, you're going to be paying through the nose too. And guess what? When the petrol price goes up, everything goes up because the cost of getting the stuff to you goes up. So expect every little thing on the shelves to go up commensurately. This is a scary thing, and I suppose we just got to deal with it, because there's nothing they can do. There's nothing they will do. You just you have to just, oh well, okay, that's it.
Just have to swallow that hard pill, man.
Yeah, not great. And then Russia, shame. Russia, apparently McDonald's are going to leave Russia for good after 30 years. Poor Russia. This could give them a chance to get even healthier. I know. I mean, if only McDonald's would leave here, then we'd all get healthier.
Cyril
Do you
never
think
allow
Cyril would allow
Cyril
that?
never allow that.
Well,
Nope.
he does. I don't think he owns them anymore. He used to. But so the whole thing here is we meant to be saying, oh, good for McDonald's. They've taken a stand and they're getting out of Russia because, as they said, the humanitarian crisis and the unpredictable operating environment that's been caused by the Ukraine war is forcing them to shut down their stores. The first McDonald's opened in Moscow in 1990. And a year later, the Soviet Union collapsed. See how bad McDonald's is for you? Everything falls out.
The Soviet Union collapsed because of McDonald's. There's a direct correlation.
Well, I mean, it's a fun story. So apparently McDonald's wants us to think that them pulling out of Russia is some kind of moral high ground situation for them. I don't know if I see it that way. I see it as like advantage Russia, because maybe people will eat healthier food. That's what I'm thinking. You think that's fair?
I don't know. I don't
find
know
other
these brands.
alternatives.
I don't know these brands who are pulling out of Russia if they are making an impact. I don't think McDonald's is going to stop a war. I don't think Vladimir Putin is going to be like, oh, I can't get my Big Mac today, so I guess war over. Yeah, I think it's just they just want the easy publicity of, oh, McDonald's is good for the world. It's not good for the world. It kills people. Proven fact, America. But anyway, yeah, like it's just, what is it? Virtue signaling. That's what it is. It's virtue signaling by McDonald's.
Congo Chris is on fire this morning. Da 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 da. I'm loving Nyet. Nyet. Nyet in Russia. Very good. Got some smart people on the go this morning. Speaking of smart people, it's time for us to turn our attention to the great Jean-Jacques Cornish, who waits for us in the green room of our studio this morning to tell us about Africanalysis, which of course is brought to you by the Johannesburg Business School, where we look at what is happening around the continent. We've got a bunch of things to talk to Jean-Jacques Cornish about. JJ, how are you?
I'm immensely well, thank you. Very, very well. I was just going to have my McDonald's breakfast, and I was planning my, the much demanded personal appearance with you guys. But do you mind if I do it before the end of the month, so that I don't think I have another crossing before the end of the month. Maybe I'll delay it till the fuel price goes down again. All right.
I know, isn't it terrible? I mean, these are the things that ordinary old people have to deal with. All of us.
Ordinary old people.
No, well, we are ordinary old people because we're all just trying to get by and do our thing every day. And because Russia and Ukraine want to fight with each other, I don't see why this should be or Joe Biden, for that matter, why all of this should be affecting us as much as it is. But JJ, let's turn our attention to the continent that is home and bring our eyes to places that are closer to home and look at some of the stories there, because this is what we love talking to you about. And Bakh'abantu and Lebang and I, every week or every second week, we like to check in with you and see what's going on. What's happening in Somalia? We haven't checked in on Somalia for a long time. That place has been a basket case for all of my living memory, but is it getting better?
1991, the fall of Siad Barre. They've had conflict there ever since. And just for fun, right now they have the worst drought in 40 years.
Oh, man.
So they have a new president. They had elections. Now, you want to know about elections? One person, one vote. They haven't had that since 1991. This is what they do with their elections. They have MPs. The MPs are elected thus by the various clans. As you know, Somalia is split by clans. So each clan puts up a number of delegates, and they then elect MPs. They have not that many MPs, and they then each become part of an electoral college. And so Hassan Sheikh Mohammed, who was president 5 years ago, won the election after 3 rounds with 214 votes, becomes president of this electoral college votes. He beats Farmajo, who's Mohammed Abdullahi, who got 110 votes. He will serve a 4-year term. The voting was done at a specially secured aircraft hangar outside of the capital, Mogadishu. So, as I say, people saying, how can you call this a proper election? This is the closest thing they can do for an election. There's huge celebrations, people firing shots into the air, people banging drums, and then there was congratulations from neighboring Kenya, from Ethiopia. They're all happy that this is over now. The election was delayed for 15 months. Farmajo hanging on. But the important thing that because he's now going to face this conflict and the drought, not a job that I would want, Hassan Sheikh Mohammed. But the important thing is that Joe Biden has approved the return of some U.S. troops to Somalia. You know, Bill Clinton pulled them out with after Black Hawk Down. Remember that notorious episode? Yes. But there were 700 troops there. Now, they were using drones effectively and training Somali troops. Donald Trump pulled them out. Now Joe Biden is saying we will put troops back in. That was the overnight news. We don't know the number yet. Will it be another 700? But essentially, they have targeted 5 of the top al-Shabaab leaders, and they will get them not with boots on the ground chasing them into settlements, but with drones. And they were quite effective with us in the past. And even the Somali authorities having to say, well, okay, they're doing the job for them. The fact is, there's also been quite a lot of collateral damage. When you use drones, that's bound to happen, and you get civilians killed. So things are hotting up.
You know, we talk about Somalia, and I always kind of think of that Lord of the Rings movie where there's that city that's been almost completely obliterated. There's more rubble than there is, brick standing on brick or stone standing on stone. And really, Mogadishu is an absolute mess and has been since 1991. That's longer than South Africa's been a democracy, that place has been a mess. What is it like to be? Have you been in Mogadishu? And what is it like for the ordinary Somalian when you've got this play acting by politicians and meeting in an aircraft hangar to elect a government, in inverted commas? But it's really just warlords and, as you say, clans. It doesn't seem to me that the average Somalian is even particularly affected by any of this play acting by the politicians. What is life like for the ordinary Somalian?
Well, al-Shabaab is being kicked out of the urban areas. There's 15 million Somalians, by the way. And, the politicians then meet at hotels and restaurants and places within Somalia. This is the first election. It's only the third election since 91 that has been held in Somalia itself. Not only are they questionably democratic, but they were held in Kenya and in Djibouti. And there's a lot of vote buying. The Djiboutian president, Omar Guelleh, said, I don't know about this election when he hosted it last time. It seems that al-Shabaab is buying all the necessary votes to run the place. But, to cross Mogadishu, you have to go through something like 7 checkpoints. So the center is held by one clan. Another section is held by another warlord. It's an absolute nightmare to traverse the place. Somalians trying to get on with their lives. But every time something happens that is heartening, along come the al-Shabaab and blow it up. They don't want anything to happen that's of any use. So it literally is. When you talk about a failed state, that means one thing. But Somalia is really, really a nightmare state.
Yeah, I remember there's that report that they bring out. I think it's the UN, or it could be some NGO in the world who actually ranks countries from best to worst. And at the bottom, they've got the failed states, and they've got some countries which are absolutely war-torn and where there is a current war, places like the Ukraine or, Afghanistan or wherever. And for some reason, poor old Somalia always ends up right at the bottom of that list. In other words, they say it's worse than active war zones because there's just been nothing but misery for the people of Mogadishu and the surrounding areas. Obviously, where
sadly,
probably
South Sudan makes that area too. They both countries that have been absolutely riven by conflict. I think that is a UN thing, peace survey. No, it's an American body. Sorry, an American body that has it. I'm busy working with it. I'm trying to put the finishing touches to my book and trying to work out the 5 worst and the 5 best in that sense. Those two always come. You always have countries like Finland and Norway at the top. I don't know how long they'll be that way once they've joined NATO. I suppose even better, unless the Russians do what they threaten. But no, I love to see lists like that, corruption lists and so on, because I always check the top 3 and the bottom 3. And sad to see that the African countries, you always get one of them at least or 2 in the bottom 3.
It's called the Fund for Peace. That's what they are, the FFP, and they publish an annual report called the Failed States Index, and that's where I'm getting this information. So if you want to know, that's what it is. The Fund for Peace. Anyway, we've got other stories that we need to talk about with you this morning. Let's just turn our attention. You mentioned Kenya congratulating the Somalians. What's happening with old Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta?
You remember in 2017, they actually took up cudgels against each other in after those elections. Well, there was the famous handshake a year later. Uhuru Kenyatta, his terms have run out, so he's leaving. The elections are in August, and he has endorsed Raila Odinga. So he's Kenyatta's Jubilee Party is aligned now with Azimio la Umoja, which means Quest for Unity, the coalition of Raila Odinga. Now, Uhuru Kenyatta's former deputy, William Ruto, he's wanted, for the fighting against Odinga. He's still wanted by the International Criminal Court. He's now been sacked because he's talking about corruption between the 2 big powers. It's all become an issue of tribe. Ruto is Luo, Kenyatta is obviously the Kalenjin is Ruto, and the Kikuyu. So there is that fight, the tribal fight. But the former rivals have joined forces. But what Raila Odinga has done is choose the ex-Justice Minister, Martha Karua, as his running mate. It's the first time a woman has become a presidential running mate. So the likely deputy president, and she made a speech yesterday I was watching on Cloud, saying that I'm not going to let you down. Congratulations, great choice, all the things that you'd expect incumbent or putative foreign deputy president to say. But these former rivals have now joined forces, and so it's going to make for a very, very interesting election in Kenya. They've had their share of instability, but could Kenya become one of the big powers in Africa if they can restore stability? I've no doubt it could become, but it isn't there yet.
So, all right, it doesn't sound like there's a huge amount of stability going on there either, for what it's worth. And obviously the east of Africa is a complicated place, but let's just turn our attention to the west for a second, and Mali, which is another place which has also had a very tough time over the last few years. I mean, we know that Algeria, Mali, even Morocco, Libya, most certainly, that whole part of the west of Africa has been complicated, to say the least. What's happening in Mali at the moment?
Well, just below the very North African countries, the Mediterranean border countries, is this area called the Sahel. And that is absolutely torn by jihadi fighting at the moment. Now, in 2014, 5 countries, Burkina Faso, Niger, Chad, Mauritania, and Mali, joined forces with this G5, the Sahel G5, and they actually began an armed operation together, supported with money from the West, particularly France, in 2017. But now they've fallen out, and France seems to have fallen out with a lot of them. There was some anti-French sentiments expressed in Chad, and when Emmanuel Macron said, we're going to get out of Mali now because they've been taking in Russian mercenaries, and they don't seem to be, they seem to have other interests now and other things. France obviously saved Mali, which was going to be taken over by the jihadis. They moved in and hoofed them out. But then Assimi Goïta, the coup leader in Mali, when France said, we're going to leave, said to Emmanuel Macron, okay, but don't let the door hit you on the ass on the way out. Go now, and so they are moving them out bit by bit. But the fact is, Mali was about to take over chairmanship or the presidency of this group of five. That would have been had they met back in February, but they haven't met yet. And countries like, in fact, the United Nations is talking very strongly against Mali. France is talking strongly against them. Other countries that are supporting the anti-jihadi fight or them in the anti-jihadi fight because of them taking in these Russian mercenaries have spoken against them. The meeting hasn't happened, and Mali said, you know what? We don't even want to be members of this G5 anymore. So they've completely gone it alone. And I don't know who's going to look after their security now. Certainly, I wouldn't put my faith in the Russian mercenaries.
No, doesn't sound like the best idea. So, all right, perhaps there is a reason for us to be a little less depressed about our own continent for the moment, because I'm looking at the latest failed states index for 2021, where there are figures available. Obviously, they compare these things based on all kinds of things. There are various indices which they use to compare, but we're not home on Africa. We're in Africa to the worst country. The worst country in the failed states index for 2021 is actually Yemen, but Somalia still does come in second. So we can claim second place. Syria claims third, South Sudan fourth, as you correctly predicted, and then of course Democratic Republic of Congo and so on. And at the winning end of that, the states that they think are least likely to fall apart: Finland, Norway, and Iceland. No surprises there. But as you say, with NATO bubbling in the background, who knows?
Well, you throw your hands up at this one. I think what is happening, and then when we're talking about the refugees coming in, the fact is the refugees, the bulk of them, the greater bulk of them coming in to Europe are all from Syria and Yemen, not from Africa. Many from Africa, but and so when Europe closes its doors, we as African states closing its doors to us, we come across the Mediterranean towards you. The bulk of them, and I've seen them. I went to Turkey and saw them in Izmir. So sad to see, Gareth, 12-year-old boys waiting to get onto a boat, and they go and all they do is go and buy a cheap life jacket. There are shops that sell nothing but that, cheap life jackets, and then they've got their 6 and 7-year-old brothers with them. Their parents are either there already or waiting back in Syria for them. The desperation is beyond the singing, I tell you.
Well, JJ, it's not always fun to hear this stuff, but it's necessary for us to know what's going on, and we're grateful to have you keeping an eye on the continent for us. There's lots to talk about, and we will have you back again soon to talk even more. Of course, it's brought to you by the Johannesburg Business School and JJ Cornish. Have an excellent Tuesday. We'll catch up in a few days' time.
Looking forward to it. All the very best, guys.
Thanks, JJ. Cheers. That failed state index is like when you go into a shop and they've got all the products lined up. And some of the products are more expensive and you probably want them because they taste better. And some of the products you just know there's going to be like stuff at the bottom and it's not going to taste so good.
It's expired.
Yeah. So that's where it is. It's an interesting thing that they do. They compare all kinds of living standards. They look at various factors. They compare, for example, whether or not there's peace, what the economy is doing, what the standard of poverty and wealth are in those countries, healthcare, They compare a whole lot of these indices, and then they put this list together. I'm interested in where South Africa fits into this. Let me see if I can find us.
Oh, I don't even know if I want to know.
No, okay, so we're at number 89 out of so 89 from the bottom. Okay, and the best country would be 179. So we're not even in the top 100.
Yeah, no.
But we're not the worst. I mean, we're around Mexico, Fiji, Saudi Arabia, Armenia. These are not great neighbors, but we'll take what we can get. Obviously, they look at all these things. Namibia does better than us, which is not surprising. Jamaica does better than us. Cuba does better than us. And
we're paying Cuba.
Absolutely. As far as African countries go, some good scores here from the Seychelles, Botswana, who are up in the top 100, but we're not. We're down at 89. So there we go. That's based on 2021 figures. Tis what it is.
It is what it is.
When we come back, we'll have a whole lot more for you and some stuff that is not so serious, because there is a lot of funny bullshit going on in the world, and we've got to look at that too. Plus, we'll be joined by Mike Sharman, who is no stranger to the show and has written a new book. The man is just on fire at the moment. His new book is called Brandalism. There it is. I've been reading this. Brandalism. And he talks about marketing, about branding, and about how you've got to change the status quo and vandalize the status quo. So lots of cool stuff happening there. We'll speak to Mike in just a little while. Don't go anywhere.
This week on the Auto Trader podcast.
Is it still worth the additional price that you'll be paying each month?
Well, I mean, a lot of insurers give you a discount on the insurance based on you having a tracking device. Does the one set the other one off? Does the lower insurance premium set off the price of the tracking device and its subscription?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's two, in that scenario, I guess there's two winners. You're paying less, and the insurance company has a high chance of recovering your vehicle as well.
Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
Some people want to forget all about the 80s. Some people would prefer not to remember the hairstyles, the movies, the fashion, those pants we used to wear. God, those pants we used to wear. Some people would prefer to never hear an 80s song ever again. We are not those people. That 80s show. Music, movies, obscure references, and so many unchecked factoids. Fridays, 9 a.m. on Cliff Central. People say we're stuck in the 80s, like it's a bad thing.
All righty, it is Tuesday morning. It's the 17th of May. We've got Lebang, and we've got Bakh'abantu, and we've got me, and we've got you. And hopefully a start to a good and productive and busy day today. There's lots to do. and we've got to work. We got to work because they say the petrol price is going to go up again in June, and not just by a little, but by a lot. You know what I think we're going to have to do? We're going to have to find ways to like squash all of our stuff into 1 or 2 days of the week, and then you don't drive the rest of the week.
Yeah,
That's what we're going to do, right?
Like we need petrol public holidays where we don't spend petrol on anything. You just stay at home and work from home. Yeah, maybe that's the new pandemic, the petrol price. Can we have a stay of home order for that? State of nation disaster, anyone?
I'm not looking for any new pandemics, if you ask me. I'd prefer if we didn't, if we didn't try and. That's almost like looking for trouble, you know. No, I know what we need. Let's find a new pandemic. It's going to be exciting. Oh man! All right, we got lots of things to get to. So, Bakh'abantu, couple of these stories that I know you're interested in, and NFTs I've never really understood. I said this in the beginning. We had 2 guys on who were experts on collectomania the one day, and this crypto crash has pretty much gutted the NFT market, right? Are you happy about that? Because you never believed in them either, right?
I hated NFTs. All of them were ugly. Also, I didn't understand the concept. You're selling me a picture. Well, you're selling me the license to a picture that I can just download on Google. So, but that's besides the point. I just thought, and then even when you look under the hood, I'm no Sean Sanders or anything, but when you look under the hood, like, are they bad for the environment in terms of the amount of, like, to create one in terms of the blockchain and the whatnot, just bad carbon emissions and what. But when you look at the actual thing that you're getting, Gareth, it's terrible. There was this one, the Jack Dorsey's tweet got sold for something like in the millions. And when the guy who bought it tried to auction off earlier this year, I think he got $14,000. He bought it in the millions.
He bought it for millions, sold it for $14,000. So clearly a very good deal.
And it's an auction, Gareth. So I'm like, wait, why don't you have an open price that's higher than that? Clearly no one was buying at like million mark. And you were like, I'll take anything.
I hate to say I told you so, but the moment Paris Hilton became an expert in this, the moment Paris Hilton was running around saying, I'm buying NFTs, I was like, okay, well, that's going to be a disaster.
Also, apparently, like there were low-key scams.
I'm not. What's that?
Yeah, apparently there was a low-key scam in terms of like in the NFT market. Again, rumors that I hear, because I'm not a financial expert, even though I did study accounting for those 2 years. But anyway, I digress. What do you call this thing? Apparently, like there's a feedback loop that they've been manipulating the people with NFTs. So I bought it for $1 million, and then to jack up the price in order to value it for $1 million. So then when I sell it again, I say it's 2 million because I bought it at $1 million and increased in value. So that's what's crashing, basically.
It's a kind of inflation as well. It's just bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. So it was bullshit, and now people are realizing it's bullshit. That's why they're not worth the paper they printed on. Well, they're not printed on.
Well, Mo Rabbit says, I think this is a good way of looking at it. NFTs are like having a marriage certificate, but everyone is sleeping with your spouse.
You're literally buying a code to a picture that exists everywhere in the world.
Right.
You see what happens when you've got too much money. I feel like there should be a limit of how much money a person can have. Because it seems like when you've just got too much and you don't know what to do with it anymore, and you've done everything on your bucket list, you've traveled the whole world, you just start getting bored. And then you say, what can I do with this $8 million today?
It is amazing. Like there are people who have like more money than God, like people who have hundreds of billions on the wealth scale, but they're not the ones buying the NFTs.
Buying the NFTs, exactly. That's what's weird.
Yeah. So those people are clever enough to not be spending their money on it. It's these people in the middle who've made quite a lot of money, but they're actually they just lucked out, and you can tell. Like there are a lot of people. I've met some people who are. They've done well. They've made a lot of money in life. Maybe they don't even worry about money anymore, but they're not even that brilliant. Not everybody, money is just one way you can measure whether someone's smart or not. And a lot of people who've made money are actually quite dumb. They're just lucky. Certainly, it's not true that wherever money goes, it's to clever people. That's not true. We all know people who are very bad, who are very stupid. They still got lots of cash. And we all know very hardworking, very honest people who are also extremely clever, who just have never had any luck, and money just doesn't seem to flow their way. So I don't think, like, NFTs, and I'm with you, Bakh'abantu, every step of the way on this one. I've never understood this. I didn't claim to. I was never even tempted to get involved in that stuff, and maybe I've missed out. And if one day it turns out that was a great investment, I'll be the first one to say, oh, well, I didn't see it.
I'll take that loss with a smile, guys. I am not invested in NFTs at all.
And to be honest, like, who has money to invest in that stuff now? Who? Show me those people, because they there's very, very few of them. Can't be a lot. All right. So while we're talking about these NFTs, apparently Madonna, she put out some kind of NFT. I mean, she's always trying to be on, on trend. She's always trying to be on trend. So apparently she put out a 3D NFT model of her vagina with a, I know. Just hold that thought for a second. I know it's a very disturbing thought, but just hold it for a second. So what it is an NFT model of her vagina with a tree that's growing out of it. So it's a tree grown in Madonna's vagina, which she imagines people would want to buy.
Yep.
It's not bad, actually.
She titled it Mother. Yeah, it's not as explicit as it sounds, but Mother of Creation. And I'm like, oh, Madonna, stop. Have you seen her TikTok with just a face, just like in your face? And she's like, oh, Madonna. And she looks drunk. She looks like she's going through the most. But like the NFT itself is not bad. But again, I don't understand why I would be buying that.
There's no way I would be buying this, but Madonna, you know what? She definitely likes to push the boundaries. She likes to seem like she's very trendy and knows what's going on. Maybe she does, maybe she doesn't. I wish her luck. If somebody buys this, be it on your own head. I mean, I can show you a version of what it looks like in 2D. I can't show you the 3D because you would have to buy that from Madonna for millions of dollars, I suppose. But here it is. That's what it looks like. It's a very much younger Madonna. Let's just say. And then there's this tree that's growing out of her vagina, which is terrifically exciting. Well done to her. Do you also get the feeling like she's really trying hard to stay relevant? It bothers her that at some point someone's going to say.
She was trying hard when she kissed Britney Spears on that stage. She was trying hard back then.
Wow. And you remember that? If you remember that, Bakh'abantu, then you are one of us.
I don't remember that. The internet told me that.
I think we need to go on like a Madonna like break, because she's doing all these really wild things in the media, and as you said, like she's really seemingly trying her best to stay relevant or on trend or whatever. It's just coming across as a little bit like desperate. I think let's just give Madonna a break. Let's talk about her again like in September, please. I'm just Good deal.
I'm happy to accept. Thank you. I accept.
Please.
All right. So
thank you.
So let's talk about something else that's been going on and which people don't want to talk about, but it is something worth reflecting on. Stellenbosch University again in the news for like race issues. So what do you think is going on there?
It's what you're saying. They're once again just in the news for race issues. Another year comes by and the people of Stellenbosch are just showing who they really are. It's literally just, it's in the DNA of Stellenbosch University at this stage. It almost just seems like nothing gets done about it. But while the student did get suspended, people are calling for him to.
Do we know what happened?
Yeah, so this young man was drunk with his friends, and they decided to break into a res room of a young black student, and they decided to piss all over the property. And they were just like, oh, we were just drunk. This is what we do. It's initiation, all sorts of bollocks excuses. So yesterday, what was interesting is to see the amount of Stellenbosch University students that actually were gathered and really were just like, yo, enough is enough. It was tons of them. Majority of them were first year students. They were just like, yo, dude, this cannot happen. Like, it's not even a case of, oh no, it's initiation. No, this is just, it's disgusting. You don't even do this to your white counterparts. It is literally borderline. It's just nonsense at this stage. So that resulted in the kid getting suspended. But like, where are you taught something like that? Because this is also on the back of like, completely different story. But in America, where that guy just went to, was it Buffalo, and just killed a bunch of black people.
Jesus,
This
yeah,
is so. And in the same weekend, there was another, I think, a 10-year-old little white boy who went to his neighbor's house with a whip and just started banging on the door with the whip, looking for their daughter, their black daughter. So I'm just like, I'm at this point where I'm like, what's happening in the spiritual world right now, where we're just being exposed to all this bullshit that is just happening, and we're just allowing the consequences of this bullshit? It just seems like, stop it, guys. You're suspended. You can't behave. Where you guys taught this shit? Like,
why would anybody? I mean, first of all, I thought that initiation, this was a thing that they don't do anymore. I mean, I thought this is something we all had to give up and move on from. It was like some childish remnant from like the public school system where, people are taught to be humble in their first year at high school. I didn't know that this stuff was still going on, and I certainly didn't take part in any of it, because when I was at university, first of all, I didn't go to I wasn't a resident. I was a day student, so I didn't really know about this. But I thought this was long ago. This is still going on. I mean, it's unbelievable. And if they're doing this kind of stupid shit to each other, I mean, to me, the level of stupid, childish disrespect that's being shown here is just unbelievable. And the fact that, we always seem to make excuses for drunk people. But I reckon if you're a horrible person sober, you'll be a horrible person drunk.
Oh, definitely.
It just magnifies you. So that's no excuse. And I also think that like race stuff is just so absolutely electric at the moment that everybody wants to make everything racial, but there are real racial things going on. And sometimes those get pushed to the side because it's become like the story of stories, right? So if you can find a racial element to a story, then suddenly it's in the news. Otherwise, it doesn't really get the attention it deserves. So I wonder how much of this is, first of all, the university ducking and diving because they're just terrified of the controversy around race, and maybe they should wake up to that. Yeah, and that's a big part of it. But I also wonder how many people just hop on these bandwagons. And I don't think there's a relationship really, Lebang, between this insane man who went in and shot all those people in Buffalo, New York. I mean, I don't think he's in any way related to a bunch of students pissing into a dorm. But I do think that the victims in both cases believe that there is some kind of overwhelming, overarching racial thing going on in the world. And I'm not going to argue with them. That's how they feel, right?
Yeah, so it's definitely two different stories. What I'm trying to do is like pinpoint the patterns and like the similarities in all these three isolated incidents which happened over the past 4 days, which all at the end of the day, whether you want to say it with your mouth or not, it's racism, guys. It's racism. It's almost like being black is like a sin. Like, what did we do? And not every white person is racist, sure. But when I look at these stories, I'm like, these are literally black people minding their business. They're not even bothering you. They're not breathing the same air as you. They've done nothing to. This person at Res was probably just sleeping. And then boo, 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 boo. Somebody comes in and decides, I'm going to take a piss on your shit because you ain't shit. It's ultimately what you're saying to me. And that's what I want to, that's what the point that I'm getting to. In the same way that this incident in the States, where this 10-year-old boy took a whip and decided to go and just bang on this door looking for this black child. Where are you taught that behavior? Like, that's not the kind of thing where you're like, oh, you know what? I'm 10 years old. I'm so smart. I know exactly how to deal with this shit. That's what I'm speaking to. I'm speaking to, yes, you're right in that some of it is just, sure, people just want to be a part of things or what. But at the core of what this is, we can't turn a blind eye.
No, we can't. But I mean, for the 10-year-old, it's an easy solution. You find out what those parents are like. And you kind of you figure out what the hell's going on there. But I mean, you can't hold a 10-year-old responsible for anything because they're 10, and 10-year-olds don't really think things through. They sometimes just do dumb shit. As for the other two, apparently they've arrested that guy in Buffalo, and he is in custody. And we'll find out what's going on in his crazy sick head, and hopefully it'll help give us some insight into where this kind of thing starts and where we can maybe do something.
Lucky him, he got arrested. Most people don't even get arrested, dog. They shoot you boom, right there and then.
But most of them shoot themselves. So what I'm saying is that we can now get into this guy's head. Hopefully, we can actually find out what drives people like that? Because I always hate the situation where these people go into a place and we have it in this country all the time, where often police officers who are under enormous pressure go home, they kill their whole family, and then they kill themselves. And we never figure out, like, okay, well, maybe if we'd done this, or if we discovered what it was that was driving them, and where they made the decision, then maybe we could do something about it. But in this case, I mean, listen, I have no sympathy for this dude, obviously. In some ways, I would have preferred if he was also dead and they did shoot him. But there is an opportunity here to perhaps
study the crazy. To figure out the patterns, because the FBI does this kind of stuff where they look at your trends, they look at the stuff you follow, and all of this. We can figure out a pattern where we can stop this. Like to your point, Lebang, wow, where are these people learning this? So then with a person like that in custody, we can try and work our way back to where did this radical mentality come from. But in terms of the Stellenbosch thing, Gareth, I don't think it's racial. I think it's just kids being kids. I went to varsity in 2015. We had initiation for that first year. We were radicalized in all types of thinking, man. It was almost like brainwashy, but it was not bad, like pissing in people's things. But we were like freshmen.
You guys pissing on each other.
Like we were like soldiers though. Like we're like freshmen. Like we woke up at 5. Our senior would call us on the quad. Freshmen would be out there, like 120 strong. We'd be booing people. Would be like the one thing I know our res was known for. We're even given a talk by the equality group or something like that on campus, where like they said some of our rhetoric was homophobic. So which was, again, being a sound person, you realize, oh, okay, this is part of the fun, but this is why people are getting hurt. So then you learn to have fun without hurting people. So then that stuff gets curated. But with stuff like this, it's Stellenbosch does have a trend, but I think in this case, I don't think it's racial. I think this kid thought he could get away with it. He could have knocked on anyone's door and pissed, which is wrong. That's the wrong action. But I don't think he was like, I'm looking for a black kid.
Do not believe this was not racial in any way.
I don't think he was looking for a black kid.
He just happened to go into that door, and it just happened to be a black kid. He would have done it to any other kid.
Like Lebang, in our like I said, we were 120 first years, right? We had like maybe 2 white freshmen, and we had 2 white housecom members. Like the math there just adds up. You're gonna knock, if you're knocking on a freshman's door, you are gonna knock on a black kid.
If it was a white guy in the room that got pissed on or whatever, would
it be a bigger story? Would we care?
Even have heard about it? Would anyone have reported it? Because I don't think they would have, and no one would have even. I mean, certainly that white kid wouldn't have, because who wants to hear that?
In an establishment that has a clear history of this kind of behavior, it's a very red flaggy thing. I mean, this is not the first time that Stellenbosch is in the news for this kind of thing. It's like the 100th time, guys. You have to look at the track record. You're only as good as your last rodeo. We can't sit here and say,
there's a pattern in the bank, but again, there's also a pattern in how many black kids go to res. A lot of black kids go to res. I think it's malicious, but I don't think it's racially malicious. I don't think that kid was like, I'm gonna look for a black kid. And like, I don't think the racism problem, especially like in the youth, I don't think the racism problem is that big.
The media loves this stuff. I mean, because now we're talking about it, right? And it makes us all go, ooh, maybe it is a much bigger problem than it is. I mean, you go through the average South African, their day, and not even the tiniest minority of South Africans on their average day is encountering blatant homophobia, racism, Islamophobia, sexism, transphobia. We're not doing. No one is going out of their way to be those things, because the cost of those things is so high. First of all, why would you want to? Because it's just shitty. But second of all, the cost to you, to your life, to your work has become so high. Like, if someone does or says something that's openly and blatantly racist these days, they're not going to survive on social media, right? And correctly so.
They probably are on social media. Like, if anything,
this one girl who got kicked out of the was it Miss Teen or Miss South Africa pageant for like tweets that she made when she was 17 that were misconstrued as racist. I'm like, I don't think in the youth, Lebang, I do think there is systematic racism and institutional racism, stuff that are like ingrained in our fabric. But I come from an Afrikaans town. There were stuff that were like, okay, this is legacy racism. But I don't think from my peers, like there was racism in that sense, like Gareth is saying, like in blatant racism, like I'm going to look for a black boy and piss. I don't think there's people who are like, today I'm going to call you a gaffer.
So I think the incentive structure is a bit perverse because the media is so interested in these stories because it gets everybody fired up, and rightly so. I mean, people are sensitive about this because of the history of this country, and frankly, in countries like America too, right? So there's an interest in it that outweighs the actual incidence of it, and. You know, there are a whole bunch of comments here about, well, you know, there was Waukesha and there were a whole lot of other things in America which no one talks about because it was a black person who was doing that to white people. Doesn't get the same amount of coverage for all kinds of reasons. But I think the media is a big part of this. So I'm glad we're talking about this stuff. We need to talk about this stuff. It's important to address these things. But I don't think it's all cut and dried and obvious. I mean, some of it is just...
I think it's bad behavior. I think it's just bad behavior. The university should address it as bad behavior. I don't think it's racially motivated. I don't think we should be looking at.
Well, why don't we ask the people who did it?
Because I was about to say. I think like the best thing here is to the experience of the kids in those reses is probably completely different. I mean, obviously we're on the outside looking in. There's only so much we know, but I truly believe that, and there's probably tons of them who will most likely be willing to like join us on the show, whatever. But just to, you know, understand what they experience, like in the same way that we say nobody goes out their way to really be racist and
if we use those words racially motivated, then we need to actually understand the motives of the people who do those things, and the chances of. First of all, they've got to be honest, which you don't always know you're going to get. Maybe they won't be honest, so we'll never know their motives, and you can't mind read. So we may ascribe to them that they are, you know, vicious racists, but we don't know that for a fact. That's the whole problem with this thing, is it's an unfalsifiable premise. So if you say to someone, well, if I say, well, your motivation is because you don't like me because I'm tall or because I'm white or because I have blonde hair, I have to be able to prove that. And the fact is I can't. I can never prove that.
You can't disprove a negative.
Correct.
Look, I literally watched my younger brother go to one of like the best schools in this country and get bullied to the absolute core just because of the color of his skin. So I guess I'm coming from a place of like, I can kind of, you know, I see this for what it truly is. And we can call it all sorts of things and say, oh no, but they were just this, to see it firsthand, you start to see that, okay, cool. We're just allowing people to do whatever the hell that they want and then just coming up with excuses for it. And when you see it firsthand, it completely hits different. So that's what I'm saying. Maybe the solution here, if we are that interested, is to perhaps, you know, see what the people in Stellenbosch have to say, see what the rest students have to say. If for them, really, this was just, it could have been anyone, then for sure. But I mean, if half of the kids are doing the whole day,
but the media come along and they don't actually give us the report directly from the student who was the victim in this case or the students who were the aggressors in this case. We don't even hear those stories. They just put a narrative together for us, and we're expected to accept it at face value because it sells newspapers or it gets clicks online, and it makes people like us on this show this morning talk about it. So they've won, the media. It's not really about, we don't even know the names or the identities of these people involved. We've been sold a story and we're just believing it. And unless we actually ask the people in it, like, how do you feel about this? What happened? Tell us how it goes. Then we're just speculating on something that we can't prove. It's ridiculous.
Well, yeah.
Anyway,
let's post a video. But yeah, I think let's park it. It's very, very late.
I think it's a good thing to talk about, and we've got to talk about it some more. And I mean, listen, you also have to bear in mind that these incidences do not occur all the time. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in the news. If they occurred every day, and it was the norm, and people were just not getting along, and it was massive. There was worse racism now than back in apartheid. Then it wouldn't be in the news. The reason it's in the news is because it's rare, and we should be grateful for that. Anyway, we got more important things in terms of our guest this morning to get to. Now, his name is Mike Sharman. He is no stranger to the people on this show, and he's been a guest of ours many times. He's written another book before, which was called The Biggest Dick. And here he Here it's sorry, the best dick. I mean, you obviously have
Best,
the biggest one.
no, Gareth, the best.
Size doesn't matter, Gareth.
So, Mike Sharman, first of all, nice to see you, dude. I haven't seen you in a while. Are you good?
Strong, man. How are you?
Yeah, very good. So, first and foremost, well done on a new book. And I'm sorry I didn't make your book launch. How did all of that go?
You were just swanning and living your best life up in Mexico, I believe. So, listen, you had more important things to do than attend a niche book launch.
Listen, you're a busy man. How the hell do you get to write a book, a second book, it's got to be added, while you're also running a business and you're dealing with like hundreds of clients and all kinds of things? How do you get this together?
I think I have undiagnosed adult ADHD, and I feel like there's a constant creative itch that needs to be scratched. And I think, fortunately, where I am quite fortunate is from a retroviral perspective, there's a really good structure in place. So there's an amazing MD, creative director, and the structures of the business of designers and account managers and finance. So a lot of the time I get to play at a very strategic kind of dreamer level. I get to play in that new business, connect the dots level. And for me, this book, I started writing it in 2019, and then a small thing of COVID got in the way. So having to push out the creative side hustle to actually focus on keeping the cash flow and revenue afloat, I think that was priority number one.
Well, Lebang is also in the advertising. She comes from the advertising and marketing world. And I look at what you guys do in that world. It's first of all, you kind of giving away a lot of your secrets in here, Mike. And I love that you're doing that, but you've let us into how you've built a business, how you've served so many of your clients and customers and brands. And I'm a bit worried that people are going to take this and actually copy and paste and start up their own businesses and steal work from you. Do you worry about that? Because you really give it all away. It's amazing.
Gareth, I think there's so many nuances and network elements in connecting the dots when putting campaigns and coming up with ideas. I think that so many people have ideas, but they don't necessarily follow through with the execution. And I think that within this ecosystem of creativity, there's so many similar ideas in the ether at the same time that it's the person who acts on the idea who comes out trumps. And I think the two examples that are used in the book, the work we did with My Creepy Teacher, the My Octopus Teacher spoof, and then most recently, which we don't cover in the book, but it happened incredibly quickly this year, was Tinder Swindler came out, and then we created a reactive 60/60 Swindler, where checkers created on their 60/60 app missions for don't get swindled. And then obviously we said to them, listen, your mission's doing so well. So many South Africans have seen this scam fest. Let's use Glenn, Beadham, and Pam to make a Simon Levi response video. And, unlike Craig Foster, Glenn actually looks like Simon. It's that Israeli heritage, I believe.
All right. Well, let's just go into the name, which I love, brandalism. And you talk about, the byline is building brands by vandalizing the status quo. Really, marketing and advertising and the whole idea of even PR has become a very, very different discussion to what it was maybe 20 years ago when you started in this business. Then there were certain gatekeepers, there were certain formulas that were deployed, there were certain ways that you did things. And then someone like you comes along and you break the rules. And in the beginning, that doesn't go down so well. In the beginning, you're the pariah and you get into trouble and people go, well, we don't want to work with him. He's just he's a shit stirrer. And maybe he gets attention, but that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for serious advertising. We want what do they call it? A return on investment for this money we're spending here.
And what your KPIs.
Right. And what they probably realize, look at Lebang smiling, she knows. And then what you realize somewhere along the way is actually, if you can get their attention in an attention economy, you've won. The rest isn't as important because there are a million people who are following the rules still to this day. Unfortunately, there's still way too many people who think they can get by on the marketing rules that were set in the 1960s by guys in these huge agencies. But that's all changed. And if you don't hop on board this new bandwagon at some point, then unfortunately you'll go the way of Kodak and you'll go the way of Nokia, and you'll go the way of so many other businesses that people just don't care about anymore.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff to unpack in there. And I think that the concept around brandalism was an anti-advertising movement that was actually started by a host of artists. And it was something that ran in the UK side of things, when those artists were looking at the billboards and the outdoor media that was telling women that they weren't good looking enough. So they had to have perfect skin, and they had to use these certain cosmetics, and they had to look at using products that were going to make them look better versions of themselves. And brandalism was effectively saying that, this isn't right, that you, as your credible, authentic, true self, you are the person who matters. And that's where they started going out and vandalizing outdoor spaces. Also, when Scott Morrison came out and said, Australia, there's no such thing as climate change, those fires are just natural acts of God, then a whole bunch of Australian designers and advertisers went and vandalized bus stops and started putting up pictures of Blinky Bill and, I don't know, Crocodile Dundee escaping the fires and showing, oh, Scott Morrison, does climate change not really exist? Come on, Scotty. So
yeah, I mean,
that's kind of the
if I can stop you there. If I can stop you there, we're tired of being spun narratives by either politicians or branding companies, marketing businesses, and huge corporations. I mean, we don't have to believe their nonsense anymore. There was a time where we didn't have an option, because they were the only people who were able to speak on these things. So you mentioned just a second ago, like, for example, cosmetic companies and how the idea of what's beautiful has changed. So I'm just going to put this up, and then I'm going to ask all three of you for some comments. And then obviously, Mike, you go last, because based on your experience, I want to hear. This is the cover of Sports Illustrated right now. And that's the woman on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Her name is Yumi Nu. And people are saying, oh, this is so empowering. She's such a brave, courageous woman. So brave, and she's so fantastic. And this is what Sports Illustrated, which used to be, let's not kid around here, Sports Illustrated was basically as close to what you could get to a published piece of work with gorgeous women wearing as little clothing as possible. That was the whole point of Sports Illustrated. No one was reading it for the articles. I don't believe any of that was important. No one is going, what we need is more editorial integrity in the coverage that Sports Illustrated gives us. And we also weren't looking to them for being leaders in social commentary. They were just really a magazine that showed off a whole lot of very pretty girls, usually on a photo shoot in a beach somewhere, wearing skimpy outfits. But this is what Sports Illustrated is now. Is this a sign, Lebang, Bakh'abantu, and Mike, of evolution and of progress? Or is this a sign of, kind of almost a backlash to years and years of us being sold what was the perfect woman? Now, how do you guys interpret this? And then, Mike, you go last.
Already, I knew how you were going to feel about Gareth, but I think this is just it could be a number of things, right? So the first thing is, obviously, from a branding perspective, brands want to stay current. They want to stay on trend. And what's the trend right now? It's inclusivity. It's everybody deserves a chance. Everybody needs to be seen, which I'm not mad at. I'm not mad at the fact that a young girl who's a little bit overweight, gets a chance to see her possible self in the future so that she can feel okay about herself. So I'm not mad at it from that perspective. From a business perspective, we all know what you guys are doing. You're literally just trying to be relevant. So we can talk about it like we're doing right now on the Gareth Cliff Show. So that's all that it is. Whether it's going in reverse because the girls that were on the cover before were all skinny and blonde, I don't think that's the thing. It is probably just a keeping up with the times thing. To just put it in one sentence, it's keeping up with the times. It's also just showing a variety of what beauty can be. Beauty shouldn't just be this one-sided coin. That in itself is beautiful. It may not be for you, but it sure is for somebody else out there. That's what I think is going on Sports Illustrated in the year 2022.
No, I agree with you, Lebang. I agree with Lebang. There is an element of overcorrecting by society in general. So Sports Illustrated is just pitching to that overcorrecting of society because that's what's trendy right now. I'm not for body positivity because I believe science says healthy is healthy and unhealthy is unhealthy. I'm kind of a cynic when it comes to that. I don't say I'm the healthiest person ever. I'm no mulelo, but yeah, like if you're pitching that as like, there was no tagline, but I usually see these pictures of let's say, plus size model, and they say, well, oh no, we're healthy and this is what you should strive for. I think in terms of your personal image, you should be comfortable with that. So a little kid growing up seeing that is empowering, but also the message should not be lost. That's not what you should strive for, in my opinion. I don't know.
Okay. What do you say, Sharman?
I think that
Let's hear the experts.
I think that it comes across as a little bit fake and forced. And I think that if you look at the stuff that brands such as Nike have done in the past, if you watch or you read Shoe Dog from Phil Knight, it's an incredible story. You know, Nike never jumped on trends because it was popular. Like, they were supporting Tiger before he even made it into the pro leagues. Phil Knight was walking green Tiger in NCAA golf tournaments. And then fast forward to the likes of, Serena and the other current leaders within athletics, that Nike has continued to support them throughout. It's not supporting a Tiger or Serena because it's trendy now to do it. They've been with that talent since they were teens, and even since the Williams sisters were young girls. So Phil has an exceptional talent to find that talent before it's broken into mainstream. And the converse of that, we looked at Gillette going from a very alpha male type positioning to then coming out with toxic masculinity messages, not all men, etc., etc. And it felt like they were jumping on a trend to capitalize on what society was talking about, as opposed to being credible and authentic to who they are. As a result, obviously, Gillette's share price tanked because people just felt that they were almost topicality washing and putting on a message. And that's what, Sports Illustrated could also be in the same position doing, as like they're doing something because it is the right thing to do, as opposed to what Sports Illustrated believes should be selling and peddling at magazine stands.
But
so they're trying to get... No, go ahead, Labang.
Yeah, but Mike, that's the problem now. Don't we live in a society where we can kind of see through all the bullshit? It's no longer just like, we can just make it look pretty and people will just believe it. We have access to this information. We're more knowledgeable. We can see that this is what it is. So how do brands then find that balance? Because I'm struggling a bit with seeing these brands really, really try hard, and they're quite desperate to trend, to fit in, to seem cool, even at the expense of going against who they really are as a brand. So the core of who they are doesn't matter anymore, as long as they're number one on the trends. How should brands just try and find like a nice little, balance between, look, we are still remaining who we are, but it's still important for us to fit in and to, be seen by the cool youth or whatever the fuck they're trying to do. But, it hurts me and it pains me to see these brands just bury themselves in these poor taglines and poor campaigns that have nothing to do with who they are.
I think you made an interesting point there. And I think, we speak from a very curious space. We speak from a little bit of constructive curiosity and criticism around what people are doing. But the average person out there doesn't interrogate, they don't question. So if you're a marketing manager or if you're a brand, you hear about influencers, you hear about celebrities. So we do all of Lilette South Africa's work, and one of their competitors, they went and chose one of the largest celebrity women in South Africa to be the ambassador for their brand. And off the back of that, it was great from a trending perspective. But if you look at the work that we've done with Lilette in particular, we've built a platform called Lilette's Talk, where young women going through their first pregnancies, women going through menopause can log on and they can ask questions if they are uncertain. If you come from a rural part of South Africa and it's taboo to talk about those things, then you can ask a question which can be answered in vernac. We don't have celebrities on the platform. We have responders who are gynaes, pelvic floor specialists, etc., who are real people who are catered to answer those questions. So sure, the short-term hits and the trends of having a celebrity with millions of followers might look good from a vanity metric or from a reach perspective, but to really build community, how are you incorporating experts that resonate?
I like that term vanity metric, because I think that's also a big part of what works and what doesn't. And I love what Lebang said here too, is like we can see through this story. We can't see past this woman; she's enormous, but we can see through the story.
Oh my word.
And the story is no. Because I'm not trying to make friends, and I don't want Sports Illustrated, and frankly, no one else does either. They haven't sold more than a tenth of the copies they would have sold 5 years ago, because sometimes when you go woke, you go broke, as given again by Mike in the example of Gillette. What I like about this story is Lebang, you made the point. It's like we can see if you're trying to be authentic, but you're not. And this is because the people who decided on that Sports Illustrated cover, or the people who decided on Gillette's direction with regard to toxic masculinity, those are the same people who've been making marketing decisions for the last 30 or 40 years. They're not the Mike Sharmans. They're not brandalists, right? And Mike, this is the point. It's like, you can't bullshit people anymore. And authenticity and credibility are in very short supply. And they're in massive demand.
Gareth, what's interesting is that this is the first time in history where businesses and brands are growing, exploding to number one status in their market, but then contracting and dying in the shortest period of time. So the average age of an S&P 500 company now in the US is just under 18 years old. And if you think about 18-year-old businesses, Facebook's 18 now. So that's kind of like the limit of so many of these companies that have hit their peak. And then because they don't cannibalize their own self for the best progression opportunities, they end up dying. And, as much as we tease Zuckerberg about being an android or lizard man or various other nicknames that he's captured along the years, he used to notice, he would look at the trends that were happening and say, cool, desktop is going to be overshadowed by mobile. So then he started briefing internally to say, I only want to see presentations on mobile. I don't want to see death by PowerPoints anymore. And when people walked into those offices to present and brought their laptops out and opened them up, he would literally take them and throw them out the 20th floor of whatever building they were sitting on and say, I told you I want mobile presentations, mobile first, because if we stick to desktop, we're going to die. And, you can give him a hard time and say that Facebook's stolen a whole bunch of features from Snapchat and TikTok and all these other competitors. But if you don't continue to destroy, reinvent, rebuild, you will become an inevitable death yourself.
Yeah. No, I love that. So, all right, let's just talk, because your book is full of funny anecdotes and you bring a lot of your own stories into it, which is one of the reasons I've enjoyed reading it. I think it's worth all of us and everybody who's listening to us and commenting at the moment, maybe recount just some of the dumbest things that you've seen in marketing over the last while, and some of the things that frustrate you the most when it comes to not only ordinary consumers, because we all can be very stupid and predictable in our behavior, but also like companies where they make the most obvious mistakes, and how you make a brand interesting, sexy, and, as we said earlier, credible and authentic in a world where there's just so much nonsense.
The one example that pops to mind immediately around being silly is when Bic launched a pink pen. And they basically said, here we go, woman, you get to have your own pen. It's all pink and pretty now.
Oh my God.
Put your small hands, so now we've made a pink one.
They've actually done that. That was a real thing. That Mike's not making that up, Lebang, I promise.
Somebody okayed that. There was a group of people that all approved it. And obviously it just doesn't go to one person. There's multiple people that need to approve one campaign. Somebody said, yes, that is correct. We like it.
It's visionary.
It's visionary.
Yeah.
It's the amount, I think the abuse of influencers. And I use influencers quite, because truly are these people influencing us, yes or no? And I like the fact that you started, you're a co-founder of Webfluential, because you've probably seen this with your own two eyes, that, look, you can get that person with 5 million followers, but are they really even touching half of those people? Are they influencing them in any way? And I just had a conversation this past weekend at a braai. Oh no, it was yesterday at the office, with a certain brand that had clearly just picked maybe 5 names out of a hat and said, these are the ones we're going to go for. And the content that they came up with has absolutely nothing to do with the actual product. But hey, they got paid. They're going to keep it moving, and they'll take the next campaign that lands in their lap. So that whole concept of influencer marketing is just getting so tired and so abused. And I cannot wait for what the next big thing is. And I think the person who knows what it is probably Mark Zuckerberg. That's it.
But you know what? I think that's such a great point around this contrived world of influencer. And for me, I love the extremes. The influencer, Gareth knows our friend Hobbo, who we took on a biogen journey where he went from 130 kilos, had never run 5 kilometers, when the competitors and supplement businesses were using these ripped oaks from 4 Ways. Then there was Hobbo, and he went and he ended up completing half Ironman after 10 months of training and not getting juiced in his left bottom cheek, with testosterone to help him turn into a racehorse overnight. So you've got the influencer where they don't feel like they hired guns to participate in a campaign. And then last year, Checkers 6060 came out with this remake of the good old Mendoza classic for all the white viewers out there who love Mendoza at a wedding, They had instead of 50-50, they had Let's Go 60-60, obviously because of the product. And the soundtrack was a retail campaign, right? So it's going to work on radio and it's going to work on TV. But I love bouncing ideas off comedians, and Don Goliath and I were doing some work on this project. And I said, Don, have you ever been in Cape Town as a new father? Have you ever run out of baby formula on a Sunday night in Cape Town? It is easier to find Tuck in Sea Point than it is baby formula. And I said, Don, what other challenges do you have as a new dad? What are the things that your wife can relate to? So I said, how about this? Run out of nappies. My wife's not happy. Let's go 60-60. And that was Don's brief. And by bouncing those ideas off each other, Don got to create an entertaining piece of branded content. And I think that's the key takeout for brands and organizations, is that people are watching more Netflix. They're streaming more content. They're being entertained in new ways more than ever. We don't want an ad to interrupt us. We want an ad to entertain us. And that's when you've done a great job.
But Mike, let's also be very honest about this. The fact is that most corporates who have a marketing budget are cowardly as hell, and they want to do whatever it is that creates the least noise and gives them the least negative attention. They would rather do without attention. They would rather forego marketing in some cases than get into trouble for the wrong kind of marketing. And that is a difficult thing to navigate as someone in your business.
It really is, and I think that's where we're fortunate. We've positioned ourselves as the challenger brand for challenger brands. And generally, we don't win work through pitches. If we end up pitching, we are almost always the outliers. We're there as, what are the quirky kids going to offer us in this one? And we're not always there for a real shot. If people want to work with us, generally they've heard me speak at a conference or followed me on Twitter. If someone sends me a message and says, hey, I've been following you on Twitter for a while and I don't have to apologize, then it's a good business opportunity.
So also being able to say no, right? And you've got to have the right mix. If someone who's selling washing powder comes to you and they go, we're really keen to make our washing powder very sexy and attractive, but you just aren't excited by washing powder, you have to be able to say no.
Exactly. And that's the hard part. It's like in the entrepreneurial space, you're just constantly chasing wins. And it's important to define what you stand for and what you stand against. And I think too few situations, people actually stand up for what they don't want to work on and to walk away. And there are a couple examples in the Brandalism book. Like, we fired a client once and they took it very personally. They tried to sue us. I said, why are you suing me for what?
I love it. Oh, man. All right. So just to recap for people who haven't already heard about the book, it's called Brandalism. You can see the cover if you're watching us on YouTube this morning. If you're listening to the podcast, it is Mike Sharman's latest book. And it's absolutely fascinating from the point of view of kind of getting a grip on how marketing and advertising has changed and where it's going, and also the kinds of stories you get to tell. And that's an important part of this too, right, Mike, is that people want to hear stories. They don't want to be sold a bullshit product line. They don't want to be, those ads that used to exist where like 1 out of every 2 doctors recommends that you should smoke Camel, because we know how well those worked out. And people can see through it because they now have the power of this. And it also begs saying that a lot of consumers are not very curious. You kind of indicated this earlier. A lot of people actually don't interrogate this stuff. And they will just buy a lot of really dumb marketing messages, even in the 21st century, where they could look it up and find out for themselves if it's true or not. So how do you walk that tightrope?
Well, I think that's the challenge, right? Is that we spoke about curiosity earlier, but we as human beings, we are force-fed what algorithms of social media want us to know. That's why the world has become so polarizing, because it's easy to keep us in our boxes and keep us buying into our own subconscious or conscious biases and to keep us buying the products and the same washing powder we have for decades. And I think the challenge with the work that we do is to create the premise and insights that enough people from a mainstream perspective can tap into and they can nod their heads along to and they can connect with. But then you need to take that emotional connection that you've had with people from a storytelling perspective and then emotionally connect them to a rational purchasing decision. And that's the challenge that we are faced with on an ongoing basis in our world. The emotion into the rational with a world of a lot of irrational people.
I know Lebang's got lots of questions.
Mike,
so
it's not even a question. I'm just getting flashbacks of this one term that always comes up when there's a new brief. We need to win the hearts and minds of South Africans every single fucking time. I kid you not. I think that's been the most consistent thing in advertising for the past 20 years. Like, so how are we going to go about this? Like, we need to try and win the hearts and minds of every single South African.
I love the way that Lebang, it's the people who ask that question in a meeting are usually people who can't even win the hearts and minds of their own spouse, let alone
dude.
They want to win everybody's hearts and minds over. They clearly don't understand how people think.
Yeah, no, not at all. I'm quite keen to read the book. It should be interesting.
Well, thanks. Let me know. Let me know what you think. But yeah, I think that's ultimately the problem, right? Is like marketers just box everyone into demographics. They don't consider the psychographics. They don't consider the nuances. You then have the Pan-African brands that say, we need to take this brand across Africa. And you're like, yes, but which part? There's so many nuances. There's so many cultures. There's so many backgrounds. You know, we've done stuff. We've shot content in Ghana. And my business partner, Ben, who Gareth knows well, you know, Ben wrote these scripts and then we had to work with some local copywriters to ensure that the pidgin English was correct, because Ghanaian pidgin English is very different from Nigerian pidgin English. And I think, you know, too few marketers actually bother to get into the actual market or get onto the ground. There's a lot of ego. And I think that's generally the problem. People aren't going to humble themselves and say, I don't know pidgin English. And that's generally when the problems arise, because you can land in Accra and you see all these South African brands, you see the F&B, the MTNs, etc., etc. But then you try and read the billboard and then your brain kind of is constantly trying to interpret what it's saying because it's just not the English that you know. And I think that's a great example, right? It's like if you're not willing to take the time, if you're not willing to ask those around you. And we've got such a tree of trust set up in our agency. We've got an office WhatsApp group. If there's any ideas that are cracking or breaking or trending, like if there's trending topics that are in vernacular that I don't understand, I'm like, yo, educate this white boy. What is this all about? Why is Black Twitter going nuts for this comment? And then the same
Google Translate is the enemy.
Yeah.
The same thing with
stay away.
Ideas. If I'm worried that like the creepy teacher is too nuanced and too niche and too white Cape Town, like saying to the team, guys, am I coming across as the old white dad here? Like, am I missing the mark, or is this something that people can find funny across gender, race, etc., etc.? And by creating that opportunity in that collaborative space, people in my office, whether they are interns or peers, you know, they can stand up and say, no, listen, dude, you missed the mark here. This is like way too white dad comedy. It's not going to be found funny by cool black guys in Soweto. And then on the flip side of that, listen, I'm a cool young black dude and I think this idea is banging, so let's give it a crack. And I think by having those conversations, we don't generally allow ourselves to be humbled like that enough. And that's where problems like the Tresemme hair scandal happened. And then people, once again, they default to thinking, oh, this must have been an old white marketer that put this on the shelves. Turns out it was a black guy that, rubber stamped it. But ultimately, once again, a black guy also is not in touch with black woman hair all the time. So you can't make these assumptions based on what you know, what you think you know, because so many times you can find yourself in a position where you've absolutely missed the mark. And the next result is being dragged on social, or worse, in the real life, as your stores get violated and destroyed.
Yeah, I suppose the interesting kind of golden thread in all of this is that you can't actually get into someone else's head unless you ask them questions. And we've got to stop assuming a whole lot of shit about each other. And this goes all the way back to the first conversation we were having this morning at like 6 o'clock, when it comes to you know, what movies you've watched and what your life experience has been and what you think about things. Most people are just not even asking those questions, which is why I like this book of Mike's. It's really terrific. Well done, dude. And I'm glad you also got to upgrade your forward to Bruce Whitfield, much better than the one I read.
I also learned how to spell forward this time. That also helped.
But it's nice to see you, and congratulations on another terrific book. I hope we keep asking questions of each other, keep finding out what people really think and how they really feel about things, because a lot of us just kind of go along with stuff, and especially in marketing, it's easy to just do what's been done a million times before and not get into trouble. And people like you get out there and you get into trouble. You're willing to do that, and most of the time you end up with a much, much better rate of return and a much higher level of interest than those people who are just ticking the boxes. So it's really important that we've got people like Mike out there breaking the rules and brandalizing things. I love it. Well done, dude.
Thanks, G. Thanks to your host as well. Lovely to meet you guys. And thanks for the chat.
Thanks, Mike. Very cool.
I'm
Very cool.
gonna take this for Lebang. All right, she's gonna read it next.
Let me know what you think. Hit me up on the socials.
I will.
Awesome.
I will.
Thanks, Sharman. Cheers, dude. All right. Well, there we go. Bakh'abantu, Lebang, we will see you on Tuesday next week. I'll see you on Thursday with Pumi, Bakh'abantu. And otherwise, have an excellent Tuesday, everybody. We will catch
Peace
up
out.
a little bit. Cheers. Bye-bye.